Hey family, peace and blessings to you guys on this wonderful, wonderful day. I'm truly excited about this new venture that God has placed me on. He gave me a vision, He gave me an assignment. So I just want to take advantage of that and start to move into things of God in terms of just bringing more information, more insight, more wisdom to the people. The vision that God gave me was to develop a format where we could get online, where we could talk and we could discuss significant issues that the community has. And what he gave me was a vision to talk about mental illness and mental health. We are in the season right now where we have a global pandemic. We have a thing going on called COVID-19 that's affecting the world. It's affecting the world and everything in it. So, in this process of just meditating and praying about this, God showed me that people are very excited and very anxious about taking care of their physical needs. People are concerned about food. People are concerned about toilet paper. People are concerned about disinfect, Clorox wipes. All those things have created anxiety in people's lives. People are concerned about their spiritual health and their spiritual well-being. They're drawing nigh to the Lord. As we go through this process, people are praying that's never prayed before. People are believing that never believed before. So we're taking care of different elements of our self. We're taking care of the physical. We're taking care of the spiritual. One thing that I found that is left out a lot is the mental aspect. How are we doing mentally? It's a lot of anxiety. It's a lot of stress. It's a lot of the opportunity for depression to sit in. So, what do we need to talk about? What do we need to be discussing as a community so that we can stay healthy? Where, how, and how can the total man stay healthy? And the concept God gave me was this. He says, I want my people to stay saved and I want my people to stay sane. So he wants us not only to be in tune with him, but he also wants us to be in our right mind. So this is the first installment. Don't want to bore you guys, but I just want to give you a little bit of an intro because that's what this is all about. This is our first episode. This is our first implementation of this. So I just need to give you some background. We're going to talk from a spiritual perspective sometimes, not all the time. A lot of my training has come in the secular world. I'm not a therapist. My background is substance abuse. I've been a substance abuse counselor, substance abuse therapist for probably over 30 years now. If you know anything about substance abuse, then you would know that substance abuse usually stems from some type of mental illness, some type of mental health illness that leads into substance abuse, and then people become dually diagnosed. With that being said, that's not the only route or the only connection between the two. Someone can have a mental illness and not be a substance abuser. Somebody can be a substance abuser and not have a mental illness. So I'm just not carving that out. It's just not one size fits all, but a lot of the elements do come together in terms of how people react and how people respond based on what's going on in their mind, what their stress level is, what their anxiety level is, what their concerns are. It plays out in their mind, and then we see it in real life and we see it in real time. If you look at the Bible, there's a lot of instances in the Bible of people who have went through stress, have went through anxiety, have went through despair and anguish, even depression. If you look at the Bible and you talk about David, he went through a lot of despair. He was on the run. He was on the run from Saul, who was trying to kill him. He didn't know what to do. He went there and hid in a cave and he prayed, and God covered him. We look at the story of Job. Job went through every single thing. He was attacked from every particular area of his life, his family, his finances, his belongings, everything was attacked. He went through depression, he went through anxiety, he went through all manner of things, but he survived. We can look at the story of Elijah and Jonah. Jonah, he had an assignment that he really stressed out about, and he did not believe God that he could fulfill his assignment. So he ran. He got out of Dodge because of that high level of anxiety. And this one, you're probably not going to like me too much when I talk about this one. But if you look at Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane, he was praying. It was right before he went to the cross. And if we're reminded of that scripture, which can be found in a number of the Gospels, it talks about that he prayed earnestly and he asked the Lord to take this cup from me. But then he landed to a place, he said, let thy will be done. Not my will, but let thy will be done. But he went through so much anxiety, so much pain, so much difficulty, that when he sweated, he actually sweated blood. That's a high level of anxiety. But he still went through, glory be to God, and he was able to do and fulfill his assignment for you. And he fulfilled that assignment for me and all of his people. One of the great things and one of the great words that we should always understand is this. Psalms 34, 18 and 9. And this is King David. He says that the Lord is near to those who have a broken heart and saves such as have a contrite spirit. Many are the afflictions of the righteous, but the Lord delivers him out of them all. So just because you're struggling, just because you're having a difficult time, does not mean you're less saved or more saved than anybody else, because the Bible talks about many of the afflictions of the righteous. So it has nothing to do with your righteousness. It has nothing to do with your faith. It doesn't have anything to do with your belief in God. So as we go through, we're going to touch bases each time we come before you, and we're going to talk. Probably we'll take a session and talk about depression. We'll take a session and we'll talk about anxiety. We'll take a session, and a big thing right now that we really need to be talking about, we really need to be discussing, we need to really be processing is grief. A lot of people all over the world are experiencing grief at a level that we have not experienced actually since wartime, when so many people were dying. But what's going on and what's challenging even more is the fact that a lot of the grief process that was allowed to people is no longer available when you're dealing with COVID-19, because what happens is that you can't even get in close proximity to the person who may be transitioning. So you can't be there. One of the things that you see in the obituary is such and such passed away surrounded by his family. That doesn't happen anymore, because what that is actually is a part in the start of the grieving process. So you can be a part of that person transitioning. You can start to get things right in your mind, in your heart, and in your spirit. But if that opportunity is not afforded, then it, to a certain degree, it suspends, I believe, the grieving process. And you have to start, and you have to be able to put things in place so that you can go through the process of grieving and I hate to say it like this, but in a healthy way, because grief is tough, grief is challenging, grief is not a one size fit all. Everybody grieves in their own particular way, but there are steps to it, and we'll talk about that in one of the upcoming sessions that we will have. One of the things that we also will talk about is we'll talk about medication to address mental health issues. So sometimes, especially in the church, people in the African American community also, is that we kind of frown sometimes on taking medication for particular ailments or particular, especially mental health issues. So one of the things that we're going to talk about, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk through that. We're going to dialogue about that. I'm going to give you some information about that so that you can have a better understanding of how that can be helpful to someone. Everybody doesn't need medication. When you have a mental health diagnosis, it's usually diagnosed on three different levels. It's either mild, it's either moderate, or it's either a significant, major. So you maybe have major depression, moderate depression, or mild depression. So it's three different levels that a person will have a diagnosis. So what we have to do is we have to look at that, and we have to look at what it would take in order for that person to start to get better and get themselves in the right space where they can function normally in society. So they can function normally in church or whatever religious institution that they belong to. Because if you have a mental illness, sometimes it's hard to hear a word. It's hard to digest a word. It's hard to get total understanding of the word that comes from your leader, your pastor, your preacher, whoever your teacher is. It's difficult. It makes the whole difficult situation, circumstances difficult. So we're going to talk about those things, and we're going to talk through those things, and we're going to even discuss, medication in the church. A lot of times we have been taught that, he just needs Jesus. Yeah, that's right. That's the core. That's the basic. He needs Jesus. But for a lot of people, they need more than Jesus. They need these things, these layer of things, so that when they get to Jesus and when they begin to embrace Jesus, that they can be able to hear Jesus and the word that Jesus is giving to them and the word that Jesus is giving to the world. So I'm truly, truly excited. My name is Malik Shabazz. I'm out of Richmond, Virginia. I belong to a wonderful church called Liberation Church. We are located at 5200 Midlothian Turnpike, Richmond, Virginia, under the leadership and guidance of Pastor J. Patrick and his wife, Ashley Patrick. So that's my home base. I'm associate pastor there. So I come from a place where I have spiritual knowledge and spiritual wisdom, also secular knowledge, secular wisdom, and experience. So just a little quick background for you. I've been a substance abuse counselor for about 30 years. All of that time, it's been interactive with mental health. The first agency that I actually worked with, we had to cross-train. So you couldn't be in the substance abuse department and not work with people with mental health issues. You had to cross-train, and then actually 1 week out of a month, you had to be on call with the crisis team. So on this crisis team, you had to respond to whatever calls you got. People in crisis. You got more calls from the mental health division than you did from anything else. So you had to be prepared. You had to be trained to respond to those particular types of calls. So I have put in a lot of work in terms of being on the front line, responding to crisis calls, being summoned to the emergency room for our agency to do psychiatric mental health, emergency psychiatric hospitalizations, to do evaluations for those things. So I've done those quite a bit in the past, not too much recently. So I have that experience. So I have been in the presence of people at all different levels of depression. I've had to do evaluations with people who you walk in the room and they're in the fetal position, um, eyes open, um, won't even respond to any question or anything that you say. That's how deep and how dark a space they had gotten into, based on this depression. So what do? Of course, we were trained to still do an evaluation based on what we physically saw in that person, and then we would make our recommendation as far as to hospitalize or not to hospitalize. So a lot of my experience came through that, and then just dealing overall with a lot of substance abusers who had underlying mental health issues, anxiety disorders, depression, all those manner of things. So we're going to get into that. We're going to talk about it. I'm going to take questions. You can put questions down in the comment box, and we're going to have a wonderful time just learning, gleaning, sharing, referring, enlightening, blessing, doing all those wonderful things in terms of to stay saved and to stay sane. We want to be in our right mind at all times, and we're going to be at a place with this particular channel that we're going to be able to help people in their respective places to stay saved and to stay sane, because the more sane you are, then it's going to help you to be more saved. God bless you. You guys enjoy. We're going to see you on number 2.